Good morning, everyone. This is John Heerdink. I'm the managing member of Tribe Public. I met many of you, but there are many more that have joined the webinar today that we have with our esteemed colleague and friend, Desmond Wheatley, the CEO of BEEM Global. Trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol BEEM. That's B, Edward, Mary, if you will, BEEM. Thank you for joining us today, Desmond, and thank you for the tribe members that are rolling in here today, and we look forward to having you for many more events in the future. Just a reminder, in this case, in many cases, we are an investor in this company, and as of late, and we tend to be investors in a lot of companies on the NYC and NASDAQ company and beyond. Indexes and beyond. So please view our disclaimer at tribepublic.com, TRIBE public, PUBLIC.com. And note that I'm also the managing member and director of Vista Partners, a registered investment advisor in California. It also has a website, Vista, V-I-S-T-A-P global.com. Please view the disclaimer there as well. Note that we could be buying, selling everything under the sun with disclaimers. We're FINRA regulated at Vista Partners, so please note that. But again, know today I'm an investor in this company, and please do your own due diligence, et cetera, or consult with an advisor. Again, we're very excited. I've been aware of BEEM Global for quite some time. Recently was reintroduced to it by my friend Tristan Elder at Core IR, great group that works with Desmond, and spoke to Desmond about our platform at Tribe, where now we have over 27 countries. A friend of, I guess Desmond came in from Serbia today, which is a new country we hadn't come in here, so thank you for joining us. And note that the theme behind this, not necessarily the companies that I think are great, it's about the tribe. And the tribe has been around for over 6+ years. We were doing events across 32 cities in the US, where the tribe were telling us through what we call the wish list process, who they wanted to see, who they wanted to learn from. Either they were invested or otherwise are considering, and we'd see if we could get them out to those cities. Obviously, COVID smacked us all in the face a little bit, slowed things down a little bit, and then we went to the webinar format, which we're doing today. And so we're continuing with our process. We're also ramping up. I'm glad to say we started in January with 6 of those tribe cities here on the West Coast, where I'm based in San Francisco and beyond, and look forward to seeing many of your bright faces in the future. And let us know through the wish list process at the Tribe Public website if you'd like to have Desmond come out to see you from BEEM Global after this in your city, and or have him back in on a regular basis as we move forward, as we learn more about BEEM Global. Desmond, would you please introduce yourself and your background, and then we'll go into his presentation for 15 or so minutes, and then we'll have 5-10 minute Q&A. We'll try to keep this to around 30 minutes. Be done around 9 o'clock Pacific, 12 o'clock Eastern, and then we'll take that the video of this event and put it at the Tribe Public YouTube channel. So if you miss anything, you can grab it there, and then we can go on from there. But thank you, Desmond, for joining us today. Please introduce yourself, if you will.
Well, John, it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you also for being an investor. We're going to work very hard to make that your best investment in your portfolio, and that goes for everybody that's involved with BEEM Global. Thanks also to the tribe members and others who are listening today. Thank you for your time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on my background. You may gather from just listening to me, I'm not an American. I have a bit of an international background. I've done business not across the entire planet, but maybe over half of it at one time or another over the last many years. I've been involved in energy for the last couple of decades, with the last 10 years, well, 12 years now actually, involved with this magnificent company, my favorite story, BEEM Global. I've raised a fair amount of capital in my life, but I can tell you I've never raised money for anything that I didn't actually execute on myself. And that makes you quite a lot more disciplined in terms of the way you operate business. I'll just tell you one quick anecdote about me, which will help you understand how I think about money. I was raised in post-war Scotland. You may have heard all the jokes about how tight Scottish people are with money. I can tell you that we were not allowed to throw our toothpaste tubes away until we'd cut them open and smeared the toothbrush around the inside of the tube before it went in the bin. Otherwise, we got a clout round the head. I carry that philosophy forward with me today. That's how I manage money. And you can see that if you look at our filings, we have incredible discipline where cash and capital and frankly, where equity is concerned as well. I encourage you to take a look at our filings and see that. So with that, John, if I may, I'd like to share my screen with you and take everybody through a few slides here. So just bear with me for a second while that comes up. And it'd be helpful, John, if you just let me know that you can, in fact, see my screen when I go to sharing. Okay, how's that? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, so today we're going to talk about what we view as some of the biggest challenges facing the adoption of electric vehicles, in fact, the electrification of transportation in general, and the products that we invent, design, engineer, and manufacture to face those problems. So first thing we're going to do, and this is the last text-rich slide I have to show you, I promise you, but the first thing I want to do is just talk about whether or not EVs are coming, and if they are, what hurdles there will be. And I'm going to start out by saying to you, yes, they are. Without a question, electric vehicles are coming. That horse has definitely left the stable. And there's a host of reasons for that. But chief amongst them, I've listed a couple of them here. The first one I want to draw your attention to is the fact that the European Union has already banned the sale of internal combustion engine vehicles starting in 2035. Now, the EU is the largest market for vehicles in the world today. And so when the EU goes all electric, frankly, the rest of the world will too. North American auto manufacturers cannot make internal combustion engine portfolios for North America and electric portfolios for Europe. Not profitably, not anymore. Maybe 50 years ago, yes, but today, no. And so that means that just Europe going electric by default means that North America will go default as well. And frankly, so will the rest of the world. Today, China is the largest market for EVs in the world, but Europe will overtake that in the coming years. Beyond that, you see states like California, Massachusetts, Virginia, and others announcing exactly the same bans, the ban of the sale of internal combustion engine vehicles, diesel and gasoline vehicles after 2035. And think about that, it's 12 years from now. We're not talking about a very long time, particularly not where infrastructure is concerned. 17 other states in the union have their emissions standards bound to California's. So as soon as California goes all electric, so will those 17 states. And by the way, if you read the paper, you'll notice that companies like General Motors and Ford and Stellantis, the big three in the US, and a whole bunch of upstarts are all committing to all electric portfolios by 2035. This is not a coincidence. They're doing this because it's existential for them. They know that they have to have all electric portfolios, otherwise they'll lose Europe as a market, and that's just not sustainable. But there's another really fantastic and in fact more powerful force which will cause the electrification of transportation to happen faster than any of the experts are telling you, or me for that matter at the moment. And that force is the mighty US consumer. If there's an irresistible object out there, certainly the unstoppable force is the mighty US consumer. And I'm going to tell you that they will surpass the aspirations of even the most ambitious governments where this is concerned. So government tailwinds will help a lot in the beginning, no question about that. But at the end of the day, the consumer will. On the right side of the screen here, what you're looking at is a picture of my Rivian pickup truck parked at the beach. I took my daughter surfing the other day, and a complete stranger felt compelled to forward this photograph to me. It is a very pretty photograph, but it's actually mostly the electric truck that he was so interested in. That's a pickup truck that does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Now, Rivian's a pretty fancy product, but we've got the Ford F-150 Lightning out there now and countless other electric models. And what I'm going to say to you is, for those of you who don't drive electric vehicles are just so far superior to internal combustion engine vehicles that there is no question in my mind that the consumer will demand them. In fact, it's impossible for me to imagine a consumer going down to a local dealership and selecting the slower, more expensive to operate and own, maintenance requiring vehicle that they have to drive to the gas station once a week over one of these magnificent gadgets. That's just not how consumers behave. As soon as they get their hands on something like this, they're going to demand it with a relish, and that means we're going to need the infrastructure. So let's talk about infrastructure, because that's the business we're in. There are about 300 million automobiles on the roads in the United States today, give or take a few parked on people's lawns. Most of them are driving around. That they will all electrify in the next few decades. And I'm going to give you a little statistic here. You need one publicly available charger for every 5 electric vehicles on the road. Put 10 experts in a room, you're going to get 10 different answers to that. But I've been doing this for a dozen years, driving the vehicles and deploying the infrastructure. And I'm telling you, 1 to 5 is a pretty good statistic for that. So the simple arithmetic tells you that the United States is going to need something in the order of 60 million publicly available chargers over the next couple of decades. The entire industry has deployed no more than 150,000 during the last 10 years. So think of that shift. We're going to have to go from 150,000 in 10 years to 60 million in a couple of decades. Clearly, there needs to be a complete shift in the way that we are doing this. And then just one other thing, although you'll hear a lot that people will charge their cars at home, yes, certainly today, early adopters like me, affluent, large single family residents, lots of room in my garage, sufficient circuit to charge a car, people like us will do that. That does not describe the general population. Most people do not live in homes where they will be able to charge one vehicle, far less the 2.3 vehicles that the average household in the United States owns. So it will end up being public charging infrastructure that's required. Now, it takes far too long, it's far too expensive and risky to deploy all the grid-tie chargers that we're going to need during the next couple of decades. In fact, it takes about 24 months in New York City, who happen to be our largest municipal customer. They buy our products to charge their fleet vehicles. About 24 months to go through the process of environmental impact, permitting, construction, electrical work, and all the other things you need to do to get a charger in a parking space where someone might want to charge a car. Look at the cost for a trench too. $2,000 a linear foot to dig a trench and return it to asphalt with cables in it. You go 100 feet in a parking lot, you got a couple $100,000 just in the trenching alone. You haven't started charging cars at all. And that, by the way, is only going to get more expensive and more complicated as the low-hanging fruit locations are snapped up, more code will be written, you'll have to dig longer trenches and do more upgrades and that sort of stuff. So that clearly, although it will be a very important part of the future of infrastructure, it's not going to be enough. And then there's something else going on here. There's nowhere near enough capacity on the United States grid to supply all the electricity that we're going to need for all of these electric vehicles. Not surprisingly, the grid, magnificent as it is, was never designed to replace oil as transportation fuel. That was not even the contemplation of it when it was first put in place. And certainly nothing that's been done to it over the last 100 years has ever set it up to do that. Just if you're interested in the physics, I mean, you're looking at about right now a grid which is already at capacity. We know that because when there's a heat wave and everybody turns up their air conditioners, the power companies turn the power off, and it doesn't produce anywhere near enough tera-BTUs today, far less to power all of transportation tomorrow. So we'd need massive upgrades, power stations, transportation, distribution infrastructure, substations, and all of those things take decades if they ever get built. And then finally, grid vulnerability. This is something that people don't want to talk about, but I'm going to tell you, I wrote an article called The Grid Pandemic and How It Will Make COVID Seem Like a Sideshow, because the fact of the matter is it's really not difficult to turn the entire US grid off, and certainly easy to turn large regions and sections of it off. The Chinese, the Iranians, the Russians have all hacked into our utility grid already, but it turns out that just low-tech kinetic attacks, crashing trucks into substations or firing rifles at them, as was famously done in Metcalfe a few years ago, will turn the grid off. That becomes so much more valuable a target when people know that we're relying on it for fuel, as we certainly will be in the next few years. So it's really a very serious vulnerability for us. And of course, we're having more blackouts and brownouts than we've ever had at any time in our history, although we're more reliant on electricity than we've ever been before. This is because of weather events, which are increasingly violent, and these other things that I've mentioned to you. So all of these things added together tell you the electric vehicles are coming. We desperately need the infrastructure to support them, but the old ways that we've been doing this are too slow, too expensive, and too risky. So what's BEEM Global doing about that? Well, we have essentially come up with what I, in many ways, like to think of as the Ford Model T of EV charging infrastructure. If you think about car manufacturing, before Ford came along, cars were all bespoke. They were projects and artisans worked on them, much like EV charging installations today. No two trenches are the same, no installations the same. It's a highly bespoke industry. We have developed a product. We've invented it, we've designed it, we've engineered it, we have multiple patents in the makeup, which provides electric vehicle charging infrastructure, but without any of the irregularities and without requiring any construction, any electrical work, and any grid connection. There's no cost for the unit of energy that you put into the vehicle, and you're totally invulnerable to blackouts and brownouts. This is something that can be mass produced, and in fact is today mass produced in a factory environment, and will allow us to tackle this problem, frankly, on a warlike footing, which is the way we need to do this. We need to produce masses of this infrastructure and get it deployed very, very quickly. So what you're looking at on the left side of the screen, the electric vehicle autonomous, underline that word, renewable charger, EVR, we call it. It's turning sunlight into electricity at the top there. It's storing that electricity in the enclosure underneath the solar array, because of course we want to be able to charge vehicles day or night, not just when the sun is shining. But that enclosure is full of our proprietary battery technology. So sunlight into electrons, electrons into the battery technology, and then down that nice curved column it goes to anybody's electric vehicle charger. We do not compete with the EV charging companies. We enable all of them, and that's an important part of our strategy. I frankly don't know which one of them is going to do well and which one of them is going to do poorly, but all of them will need a mounting asset and a source of electricity if they're going to be successful. We provide for that. And then all of that's mounted on the dumbest and smartest part of the invention, the ballast and traction pad at the bottom. You can see the vehicle parked on it on the right-hand side there. We do not need to reduce available parking, and the thing will survive hurricane force winds and is flood proof to 9.5 feet. Now, I'm going to just give you this quick slide here. It takes about 24 months in New York to put a grid tied charger in. California is the only thing that Californians do faster than New Yorkers. They can do it in about 18 months. We do it in less than an hour, and I'm going to show you a 2-minute video right now which shows you how that happens. And I'll kind of talk you through it. What you're going to see is one of our drivers. Our products don't need to be delivered by our transportation solutions, but we certainly like doing that. They can go in a shipping container. They can go in in fact, 2 of them will fit in a shipping container, or they can go on a flatbed truck. But in this instance, you're seeing our own equipment here, one of our drivers, leaving our factory in San Diego. And he's on his way to a customer with 2 of our products on board. The 2 areas of solar you can see are 2 of our products. Each of those is capable of carrying as many as 6 electric vehicle chargers. So what you're about to see is one human being deploying as many as 12 chargers in less than 1 hour. And remember, this is contrasted with New York, a 24-month process. So the driver is backing the first unit into the parking space chosen by our customer. He gets out, he has a remote control in his hand now. And with that remote control, he is deploying this unit, and he's providing electric vehicle charging with no construction, no permitting. The array tracks around, it finds the parking space, and then it immediately starts following the sun across the sky to get more electricity. Now here goes the second unit into this space. Remember, one human being, less than 1 hour, doing what takes months and years in New York. And here's the money shot, folks. Electric vehicle shows up and pulls onto the unit, and in a second you're going to see this handsome young chap get out and plug the vehicle in without any on-site work at all. No construction, no permitting, no electrical work, no disruption to the site at all, and the driver goes back to our factory. So what you just saw there, this is a real video, real customer, and these are not renderings running like that. What you just saw there was our team deploying as many as 12 EV chargers in under 1 hour, a process which takes 24 months in New York and 18 months in California. It's just unheard of. No one can touch us on our scalability or our speed to deploy. Very quickly, the products that we make here, EV Arc, I just mentioned that, solar tree next to it, same technology, generating and storing its own electricity, lots of patents in the make of it, just for charging much larger vehicles like that full-size 40-foot bus there. As I mentioned, we also make our own batteries. Our batteries are more energy dense and safer than any others that we know about, because we have thermal management under control. And then here's a couple that are patented and in development. The EV Standard's a street light replacement product. This will allow us to do curbside charging. New York City has 300,000 lamp standards in the city, and I believe that every fifth one will have to provide EV charging in the future. We simply have the best product patented on the market available to do that in the future. And then right next to that, a little bit further down the road, is a drone recharging product. We will likely revenue that with the military first for situational awareness. But I think that package delivery is the big promise for that in the future, recharging drones while they go about their business delivering packages. And then all the way to the right, more to come. There are things I can't even tell you about. We're not going to stop inventing and innovating, and we've got lots of new products which will help where the intersection of transportation and clean energy is concerned. So again, quickly, we don't compete with the EV charging companies. The ChargePoint, Enel, Blink, Electrify America, all of them have their products operating on our products. We just get them operating without construction, without permitting, without electrical work, no connection to the grid, no utility bill, and no vulnerability to blackouts. And of course, clean, green energy, if you care about that. You don't have to. This just makes sense economically and in every other way. But if you care about the planet and the climate and all that sort of stuff, driving on sunshine is a hell of a way to make a contribution. Now, it's not just cars. Bikes, motorcycles, buses. Last year, we set the world record for the longest flight of a production electric aircraft. There have been experimentals that have gone further, but no one's flown a production electric aircraft longer than we did, proper world record, because of our ability to deploy in airports. Battery, as I say, I've been a consumer of batteries for about 10 years. So I bought the company from whom I've been using the technology because it's just the best in the world that I can find, defend my supply chain, increase my gross margin, add a lot of patents and stuff to my portfolio. And then all these magnificent products that we're powering today, they all need charging. We're in submersibles, drones, micromobility, you name it, we're putting batteries in it. If you check our press releases, you'll see this morning, we just picked up another major robotics company using our batteries to power the robots. Excellent products get excellent customers. We have the GSA contract with the federal government, California contract, lots of other states, and then a whole bunch of commercial customers like Google and Johnson & Johnson and others as well. Lots of patents protecting what we do. And people say to us all the time, hey, you're deployed and you make these things in San Diego, it's solar powered, okay, big deal. Actually, look at the concentration in the Northeast. Weather's pretty shit there in the winter, and yet we're charging fleet vehicles because our product is so well engineered. And a little bit internationally as well. But pay attention. I'm going to be expanding to Europe and to the Middle East. That's my firm intention to get that done this year. Those markets there are even bigger than the markets we have in the United States. And our growth in the US is absolutely phenomenal right now. Smattering of the customers that we're dealing with. Obviously, you can see here, the Marine Corps uses our product. There's no accident about that. We're providing them a source of fuel without liquid fuels in the forward operating environment. No heat signature, not targetable in the way that generators and stuff like that are, solving a lot of problems for them. And by the way, we recruit from them too. We're a big hire of veterans, disabled workers, immigrants, God knows I'm one, and all sorts of other fine people here. I won't go into detail on this, but this is a series of charts that we've been publishing weekly since the beginning of this year. And I think what you can see from those charts is it's just growth, 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 growth. And I'll just leave you with this comment. We did $6 million of revenue in 2020, $9 million in 2021. 14.1 million by the third quarter of 2022. And then we announced that we had over $60 million of contracted backlog to execute in 2023. You guys check our filings, look at our press releases. We don't put out fluff. This is a growth engine. We're at the beginning of a massive infrastructure build out, $6 trillion according to Goldman Sachs. And we have well patented, unique, magnificent made in America products that work. In fact, 99% of the EV ARCs that we've deployed over the last dozen years are still fully operational in the field, providing power to customers. So very proud of it, very proud of the company, and delighted to be here. Now, John, I'll take questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, just a reminder, everyone, is if I've got some questions here that many of you forwarded are used to the system, the TriPublic platform. that usually a lot of folks forward questions beforehand. But also right now you can use the Q&A on Zoom to send us some of the questions. We'll do our best to get them. If we don't get them all, we'll get Desmond back at some point and address those. So go ahead and feel free to send any questions over right now through the Zoom chat feature. So the first one here is, by the way, here's what I will say about Desmond. He has been one of the most consistent individuals I ever met in my life. He has been, as you can tell, one of the most excited guys about what he is doing, I think, on the planet, and it's infectious. So, you know, keep up the good work. I'm totally, you got me totally excited about what you're doing, and I can't wait to see how this rolls out as we move forward. This opportunity is huge. No one, I don't think anybody on this call or otherwise going to see this video in the future is gonna say that you're not excited about what you're doing and about your products. It's a great position to be in, and you know, I come to work every day excited to meet guys like you, and thank you so much for again being on here today. So a quick question for you is in regards to your cap structure. Can you just speak to that? You've been very capital efficient since going public in I believe it was April 2019 through
That's right, John.
IPO. Can you speak to that and then speak to your cap structure?
That's right, John. So so the first thing is a three-letter acronym, IPO, not four-letter acronym, SPAC. That's really important to point out. We're a quality company. We operated for 10 years before we IPO'd. A lot of hard work to get that done, and a lot of quality. We're trading higher than our IPO price, and yes, we have fantastic discipline where both capital structure is concerned and also where balance sheet is concerned. It goes back to what I told you about the toothpaste tube in the beginning. I do not throw cash or equity around like a drunken sailor on a Saturday night. What you will see is that we have no debt. From a cap structure point of view, I have a very low float. In fact, I have about 10 times less shares outstanding than any of my peers. At the end of the day, this is going to be an EPS game, bubbles and everything notwithstanding. It'll come down to EPS, and I have a hell of a lot less S out there into which I will have to divide my future E. Simple fundamentals. I am excited about what I do, and I love what I do. I'm just not clever enough to keep making up new stuff. I'm a grinder. We make great products, we produce them, we sell them to great customers, and we keep doing it, and we have great financial discipline.
Well, keep up the great work from that standpoint. Here's a couple other questions here. How many vehicles can one device charge per day?
Great question. So I'm gonna give you another what I hope will be more helpful answer. Each of these units generates and stores enough electricity to provide up to 265 driving miles per day. Now, the Department of Transportation tells us that the average sedan in the United States drives 30.4 miles per day. 8 out of 10 commuters require less than 24 miles for their round trip commute. And most of the fleet vehicles that we're dealing with use less than 20 miles of range a day. So what we're really focused on is DRR, daily range replenishment. Plug that electric vehicle in every day. It's better to the vehicle, it's better for you, and you will always be full. You won't have range replenishment. And using those metrics, we can charge 6 to 10 vehicles every single day from a single parking space with no grid connection, no unit cost for energy, no construction, no electrical work, no permitting or anything else like that. I mean, it sounds too good to be true, and you'd have a hard time believing me if I hadn't been doing this for 12 years, and if I didn't have customers like the US Army, the Marine Corps, and states and everything else like that buying from us over and over again. In fact, New York's been buying from us. They just gave us the largest purchase order in our history from New York City. They've been buying from us since 2015. People in New York are crazy, but they're not crazy enough to keep buying millions of dollars worth of stuff that doesn't work.
Fair enough. Related to that, can you speak to sort of actual charging time per vehicle? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so in the United States, there are 3 different charging levels. Level 1, very slow, about 5 miles an hour going to the vehicle. Perfectly good for a lot of commuters, frankly. Plug in overnight, and by tomorrow morning, you got your daily range replenishment. We do some of that. Level 2, a little bit quicker. That's going to give people their daily range replenishment in under 2 hours. So if you're at your desk or at the mall or whatever else like that, you're going to get your full daily range replenishment there on level 2. That's what we do most of. And then there's DC fast charging. It's kind of like a gas station replacement technology. I have to say there's a lot of emphasis on that in the industry right now because humans are not imaginative. They love replacing old technologies with new technologies and making them look like old technologies. But the gas station model is going to go away. Nevertheless, we still do that because corridor, if I want to drive from San Diego to San Francisco or something like that, I want to have a gas station experience. And we do that as well. So we do all three. At the end of the day, the charger and the vehicle decide the speed of the charging. And remember, we're agnostic as the provider of the charger or even the technology behind it. We're just providing a mounting asset and a source of electricity without construction or all the other work you have to do to get that done, and in a very scalable manner.
Got it. A follow-up question is, in a public space where you have one of your ARCs, if one guy comes in with, for instance, you come in with your Rivian, the very specific here, and you charge yours up, what's the user experience post that for the next guy that shows up?
Yeah, that's a question we get asked a lot, actually. And the truth is, and I hate to sound flippant here, but I don't care. Because it's an edge case. It almost never happens. That we're not interested in focusing on edge cases. We're interested in focusing on mass adoption. And what we really see is much more of this DRR, or daily range replenishment behavior. Electric vehicle drivers, when they first buy them, drive them full to empty and then go and try and have a gas station experience. And then they quickly figure out, hey, I just plug this thing in and charge it like I charge my cell phone and put in whatever I've used for that time. Then that's a much more convenient and efficient way of dealing with things. But let me tackle the caller's question. The truth of the matter is, what you're asking me is, can you exhaust an EV ARC? And the answer is yes, you can. It's possible. If I plugged an empty Rivian, and by the way, in over a year of owning a Rivian, I've never done this, but if I plugged an empty Rivian into an EV ARC and fully charged that Rivian, I could exhaust an EV ARC. And the user experience for the next part driver would suck because there wouldn't be any power left in it. It happens so rarely. And by the way, tomorrow morning, the EV ARC will recharge itself and be available again. Remember that we're contrasting with grid-tied infrastructure, which is by no means available 24/7, 365. We don't go down during blackouts. We're much more survivable and robust from that point of view. But the great majority of charging, as I say, will be done much more like people fuel their cell phones as soon as they learn those habits. Every EV driver does learn that habit. And that's one of the great things about it. My vehicle's fueling while I'm talking to you. I don't have to go somewhere special and hang out while it's happening. I just do it while I'm doing something else.
Okay, fair enough. Related to charging up, it says, what's the coldest, hottest temperature for operation? What is the maintenance turnover if you have an issue? And by the way, I think this guy wants to work with you. He says, how do you become an approved contractor?
Okay, so listen, that's a very, very good question too. And actually, you just put your finger on the hardest thing to solve when we developed the EV ARC: thermal management. Batteries and electronics, batteries in particular, is a bit like Goldilocks, right? They don't like it too hot and they don't like it too cold. And so we had to figure out a way to make a product that could be deployed in Southern California or in Minnesota or in Mercury, Nevada in the middle of the summer. Same product in all of those environments. That was really tough because the normal way of keeping batteries in a Goldilocks zone is either to warm them up with heating or to cool them down with air conditioning. Both of those things are energy intensive, and so therefore you're not putting all that energy in the car. We had to come up with a passive thermal management solution that didn't chew up all the energy that we want to put in those vehicles. And frankly, we found that in a company called AllCell in Chicago with some fantastic proprietary and patented technology developed by a bunch of scientists and engineers. And I bought that company so that we have that now. So the answer to your question is we can deploy in any temperature range. And if you want to get involved with us, we'd love to hear from you. We're certainly growing very quickly, and we're hiring, and we're looking for other resources to help with that growth as well. So contact the company, please.
Okay, great. The other follow-up is, what do you put these units out? What do they cost? What do you charge?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to answer that question in the best way I can to tell you this. In hundreds of deployments across the United States and internationally, we have cost less in almost every instance than the avoided cost of construction and electrical work. So the customer paid less for our product than they were going to pay to dig the trenches, pour the concrete, pull the wires, and do the switchgear upgrades and transformers and all that other stuff. So day one is their ROI from that point of view. Thereafter, they never get a utility bill. So you get a lifetime of free energy as well. And I can tell you, particularly for a lot of our government customers, not having an unfunded liability like a utility bill moving into the future is a huge deal for them. But to be much more direct, average selling price for units right around $65,000. And again, that's everything No construction, no permitting, no planning, no engineering, no utility bill ever. So is it possible to deploy a grid-tied charger for less than that? Yes, it is in certain low-hanging fruit locations, but I can tell you they're all being snapped up. It's going to get a hell of a lot more expensive. And remember that little data point about the trench in New York City, $2,000 a linear foot. Trenches are not going to get cheaper. Construction is not going to get cheaper. Electricity is not going to get cheaper, but our costs are coming down. We're a manufacturing company. The more of these things we produce, the less they cost to make them. That's the beauty of scale.
Fair enough. Related to that, can you speak to sort of switching to financials, your cash levels? Do you have any debt? How are you going to manage that growth as you move forward?
Yes, another obviously something I think about a great deal all the time. So from a cash point of view, we do have a bit of a misunderstood balance sheet. I would encourage you when you look at our balance sheet to look at combinations of cash, inventory, AR net of AP, and WIP. Because working capital is really important to me, largely because I convert all of it in 180 days. So you need to add all of those things together to get an accurate picture of what our cash position is. No, we have no debt. How am I going to manage for the growth? Take a look at the last 12 years of filings that I put out, and you will see that I have with a great high degree of discipline and frugality, financed this company under some very, very tough circumstances. Today, I'm growing rapidly. I have a huge backlog of orders with very, very creditworthy customers like the federal government, Army, and others and all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to run out of money. I'm going to do exactly what I need to do to get exactly the right amount of money in to grow this business. Don't be surprised to see me put a credit facility in place for supply chain. Don't be surprised to see me taking some other actions if we make more acquisitions. But I'll tell you this, for anyone who's listening, the litmus test I have where capital is concerned is I will not sell my existing shareholders down the river to enrich future shareholders or bankers. I've never done it before. I don't intend starting today because we're stronger and in a better position than we have ever been in our history. And that just makes money cheaper and more available.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Speaking of bankers, an analyst, I'm aware that you have around 5 analysts, correct me if I'm wrong, that are covering you. And I believe
13 in fact.
13?
13 analysts covering us, yeah. And we're hoping to add a couple more really good ones in the not too distant future.
Wow, that's a lot of coverage for your market cap, right? So
can I anticipate your next question and tell you that all of them have buys, some of them have strong buys, all of them have price targets which are way higher than where we're trading today. Actually, let me be absolutely clear. I think there's a couple of holds, but even in the case of the holds, the price targets are far higher than where we're trading today. So of a 13, you might have 2 holds, the rest of them are buys, some of them strong buys, and in every instance, the price target is higher than where we are today.
Yeah, that's what at least in the 5 reports that I got access to, they were anywhere from, I believe, $23 to $40 were their price targets. And
you know what, John?
Yeah.
They're all wrong. They're all far too low.
Well, I'm glad that you're saying that, and I hope that that's absolutely 100% correct. So
I believe it to be.
Yeah. So I think I got to cut this short because, again, remember, all this is going to be in video form at the Tribe Public YouTube channel. Please go there, subscribe if you like, and watch that video. And if you need me to send it directly, I'm happy to do that as well once I get it up this week. Again, I'm excited about this space. I'm excited to have you on here today and that all the Tribe members came in here. Please continue to express your interest, Tribe, in having Desmond back and giving us updates as we move forward, and or directly in front of you to gain that direct corporate access that the Tribe provides and is traditionally provided in face-to-face meetings as well, which is invaluable in my opinion. Desmond, thank you. Any last statement as we sign off here?
It's been my great pleasure to be here. Thank you all for the time, particularly going a little over time here. Driving on sunshine is fantastic. It's a great time to be BEEM Global, and I'd be delighted to meet and talk to any of you that have more interest in the company.
All the best. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.